Hey everyone, what's going on? If you're new to the channel, what I talk about is how the world that we live in is made up with some type of mathematical code. And if you understand ancient knowledge practices such as Kundalini and Hermeticism and astrology and there's other things, there's also Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism, and it has a belief that God created the world by merging the letter with the number. And if you understand these ancient practices and you pay attention to the things that are going on within your own life, every day there are signs and symbols placed in front of you. And if you just pay enough attention and you understand these ancient knowledge practices, you can get a better understanding of the way this world truly works. And there are people who are using this knowledge to manipulate the minds of the average person, and they control our mainstream media and control our sports leagues and so on. But everyone in the world has this ability, I believe. And if we all use this knowledge in a purposeful way, I believe that we can make the world a much better place than it truly is at this point in time. We won't have to be ruled over by people constantly. We can use this knowledge to balance out the good and the bad within the world and just make this world a better place. And we can get a way better understanding of, the purpose of life. And anyway, if you've been following my channel, I talk a lot about these signs and symbols that I see every day. I see all of these patterns that exist, and I understand what is called gematria, or the practice of coding numbers into words and phrases, that comes from an ancient practice of Jewish mysticism called Kabbalah. And within it, it has a belief that God created the world by merging the letter with the number with the word. And there's also another another ancient knowledge practice called Hermeticism that has a belief that everything carries a vibration, even signs and symbols and letters and numbers. And, that's how they can manipulate the world, by putting certain stories in the mainstream media and getting so many people to put their energy into these certain stories. But they're also always coded with numbers. And also in Hermeticism, there's a belief that everything is the same and everything is also the opposite. And in Gematria, when you write out the word God, it equals 55 and 10 in reverse. And if you write out the word Satan, the opposite, it equals 55 and 10 in the frontwards way. And, there's many other things. Look at the word heaven. Heaven equals 55, just like God, just like Satan. Look at the word hell. The word hell equals 17, and look what God also equals, 17 the other way. There's many examples. Even God created Adam, the first man, right? And he created man out of dust, right? Man equals 10. The word dust equals 10. Notice it equals 26 as well. Look at the word Adam. The word Adam equals 10, 26. He created him in the 26th verse of Genesis. So the 26th verse of the Bible even, right? And notice that God equals 26. Think about how our alphabet is 26 letters even. And the Hebrew name for God also equals 26 in the Hebrew lettering. So, just wanted to show you this system really quick. And I'll leave some links in the description so you can learn to apply it for yourself. But just last night, I made this video where I talked about the TV show Cheers. And I had this weird thing going on. So I DJ'd at a bar on last Friday night, and my friend had texted me about what days I have open for my band that I'm in. And I figured while I was DJing, I would just look it up on Facebook, because I get messages on Facebook about it. And the first post I noticed when I went to Facebook was this. And it was a post from 2 days before, which was weird. And it was about this football player named Clay Matthews who was being traded to, or he signed with the Los Angeles Rams. And the reason it stuck out to me so much was because at the bar where I was DJing, on the wall right behind where I was sitting, was a giant picture of Clay Matthews. So what are the odds Facebook would put this as my first post? It has no idea that it shouldn't have any idea that I'm sitting behind Clay Matthews, but it did. And then, there was all the stuff. Clay Matthews in Gematria equals 150. Green Bay Packers equal 150. The town that I was in equals 150. And this was also on the wall here. They're having their 150th anniversary that I'm DJing for. So I know there's something significant to this pattern. And the reason I'm bringing all of this up is because this bar was called Cheers, right? And I was following all this stuff with the number 310, and I looked up the season 3, episode 10 of The Simpsons, and it talked about how it was a parody of the TV show Cheers. And I had just watched the movie White Men Can't Jump that has Woody Harrelson in it, and Woody Harrelson is also in the TV show Cheers. So I made this big long video and I talked about the TV show Cheers and how there was something important to it. And now tonight I go to CNN, and on one of the main headlines I see this story about the Big Bang Theory breaks major TV milestone. And when you scroll down on the story, you find out that they surpassed the show Cheers for the longest running multi-camera sitcom. And the reason this sticks out so much is because if you followed my channel, I've documented a whole lot of things that the Big Bang Theory is just somehow connected to me with all these signs and symbols that I see. Even in this last video, I talked a lot about Marilyn Manson as well, and these Stoneman Douglas supposed suicides. And Marilyn Manson was from the same area as Stoneman Douglas, and on the same day as the shooter's birthday, Nicholas Cruz, Marilyn Manson was in the mainstream media saying that Columbine, another school shooting, ruined his career. And then a week later, a giant gun prop fell on him and broke his leg. And then he was out for a little over a month, and he came back on 11/5, November 5th, and he was using a gun microphone, and he got a bunch of flack for it because that day was the Sutherland Springs church shooting. And just before that Sutherland Springs church shooting, I was talking about how there was a pattern with the kids from the movie Stand By Me. And we had Corey Feldman in the news talking about child pedophilia. He's a kid in the movie Stand By Me. We had Jerry O'Connell, the fat kid on Stand By Me. He was on Wendy Williams, the TV show, when she collapsed dressed as the Statue of Liberty. And that was on Halloween. And that was the same day that River Phoenix, the other kid in Stand By Me, had died, right? He died on Halloween. So I was like, there's something connected to that movie. Maybe we're going to see something with Will Wheaton or Kiefer Sutherland. And think about the Sutherland Springs church shooting. And just after that, Will Wheaton was on Fox News saying that, believing in God didn't stop people from dying. And another thing I documented was just after I talked about all that, Will Wheaton, the other kid in Stand By Me, was on the new Big Bang Theory. And he hadn't been on that show for over a whole season. So it was weird that he would randomly be on the new Big Bang Theory. And then later that year, in 2018, Sheldon and Amy got married on the show, The Big Bang Theory. And the guy who was supposed to marry them was Will Wheaton. And Sheldon's brother, he came to that wedding, and he's also on Young Sheldon, right? But his brother was played by Jerry O'Connell, the fat kid in Stand By Me. So there was all of these interesting connections. I talked about how it's connected to the royal family, and when Prince Harry got married to Meghan Markle, they played the song Stand By Me. And at the Super Bowl, they had a Budweiser commercial, where they used the song Stand By Me. There was all of these interesting connections. And, think about Marilyn Manson, and then I talked about how he was connected to Charles Manson, then Charles Manson died. So moral of the story, now I'm talking about the TV show Cheers and how there's something important to it. And I go to CNN tonight and I see this story on the mainstream media, the headlines, The Big Bang Theory surpasses the TV show of Cheers. So what are the odds of all that, right? It surpasses the TV show Cheers. Let me find my post here. So the story coming on 3/28 was also interesting because we also got a story about Penny, or Kaylee, however you say her name, Kuko. We got a story about her losing her wallet today. On the same day, we get a story about the Big Bang star losing her wallet. So we get a story about, them breaking Cheers' record, and then we get a story of her. And if you go from her birthday to today, which is March 28th, it just so happens to be 3 months and 28 days, just like the day. 3/28. And this TV show, The Big Bang Theory, it takes place in Los Angeles. And in Jewish gematria, Los Angeles just so happens to equal 328. And if you follow me for a long time, I'll leave a link to it in the playlist, or in the description. But Stephen Hawking, think about how he's connected to the Big Bang Theory. He died on Pi Day of last year, of 2018, and his full name in gematria also equals 328. I'll just point it out to you really quick. Stephen William Hawking. That also equals 328. And we know it's important to Kaylee Kuko, or whatever, the girl who plays Penny, because we got another story about her in the media the same day. And then her birthday's 3 months, 28 days before 3/28. Stephen Hawking, though, 3/28. Remember, Stephen Hawking died on Pi Day, 3/14 last year. This day is important because not only is it important to Pi, and think about Sheldon, Stephen Hawking, mathematics, it's the 73rd day of the year. And think about Sheldon. There's an episode, it's the 73rd episode of The Big Bang Theory, and it explains why Sheldon wears this number 73. It's his favorite number. He talks about how the 21st prime number is 73, and the 12th prime number is its reflection, 37. And think about what I talked about earlier, how Hermeticism is important to the reflections, right? The same and the opposite. So the 12th prime is 37, 21st prime, 73. You see the reflection here. And when he's talking about this on the 73rd episode even, Leonard says, we get it. 73 is the Chuck Norris of numbers. And notice in gematria, if you write out Chuck Norris, he equals 158. And if you write out 73, 73 also equals 158. And this is the reason why Penny is so important. Her name on the show is Penny Hofstadter. That also equals 73. And we got that story about her missing her wallet today too. Wallet equals 73. Even funnier, so remember 73 equals 158. Leonard and Penny get engaged on the 158th episode of The Big Bang Theory. And Sheldon and Amy get engaged on the 231st episode, which is 158 episodes after the 73rd episode, right? Remember, 73 equals 158. To further show what I'm talking about, 7 months and 3 days after Stephen Hawking died, we got this story in the mainstream media, how in his final book that was released, Stephen Hawking said, there is no God. And like I said, this was 7 months and 3 days after the 73rd day of the year, and he died super in connection with the Big Bang Theory, too, and it's all to do with pi. I'll explain it in a second. But just once again, 7 months, 3 days. That's why he got ALS at the age of 21, because the 21st prime is 73. The word Hawking equals 73. And if you write out final book, that equals 158. Remember, 73 equals 158. And they were saying that in his book, he said there is no God. There is no God equals 59. There is no God. That equals 59. And notice what 73 also equals. It also equals 59. Also notice it equals 166, just like the Big Bang Theory. That equals 166. Stephen Hawking then, so he died on Pi Day, the 73rd day, but that was 314. The first ever episode he was in of the Big Bang Theory was called the Hawking Excitation. That equals 314 in Gematria. And the last episode that he was on of the Big Bang Theory just so happened to be the first episode of season 11. And that was just before he died in 2017. The last episode he was on was on 9/25. If you go from that day to his birthday, it's 3 months and 14 days. And then he ends up dying on 3/14. And the first episode that he was in was on 3/14. If you look at the Big Bang Theory right now, the last episode that aired before we're getting this article, because the newest one's coming out on April 4th, it came out on 3/7, or in other parts of the world, they write the date as 7/3, a lot like 73. But notice what the name is here, the conference valuation. And look what this equals in Gematria. And actually, it's in a different cipher now that I'm thinking about it. But it's in this one called Francis Bacon, which is important to capital letters. Francis Bacon Gematria. Francis Bacon's the guy who supposedly, wrote the King James Bible and whatnot. And it's important, like A is 1 normally, and B is 2, and so on, right? C is 3. But in Francis Bacon, a capital A is 27, because it's 1 after the 26th letter. Capital B is 28, and so on. And that's why the letter G is so important in regards to Freemasonry and whatnot, because, there's 33 degrees, and, that's why the headquarters in Washington, D.C. of Freemasonry have the 33 pillars. They're all 33 feet tall, and so on. But notice what pi 3.14 equals in Francis Bacon. It equals 328, right? Like the date of these 2 stories coming out about the Big Bang Theory, just like Stephen William Hawking, right? So it's important. Pi is important. Stephen Hawking died all about pi. Pi equal the words of pi. It equals 328 in Francis Bacon Gematria. Also, what's interesting about this story is a long time ago, I've documented a lot of things about Penny and whatnot on the Big Bang Theory. Recently, I've been talking a lot about Nebraska and how it's important to the flooding. And, it was important to the Super Bowl that was all coded to Moses. And within that post, I even talked about Mayim, however you say it, the girl who plays Amy Fowler, Sheldon's wife. And her birthday is 12/12, right? December 12th. And once again, think about how that's important to the number 73. The 12th prime is 37, the reflection of 73. The 21st prime is 73, the reflection of 37, and so on, right? They reflect each other. And Penny's birthday on the TV show just so happens to be December 2nd, which in most parts of the world, they write the date as 2/12, a lot like 21 and also 12. And when her and Leonard get married on the show, the episode that it comes out is 2 months and 12 days before Penny's birthday on 2/12. And there's, trying to think what else there is. In real life, Penny got married, Kaylee Kuko or whatever. she got married 212 days after her birthday in real life. So there's a definite pattern with this number 73 and why it's important. And they do a lot of this 212 stuff. And the reason I'm bringing all this up is because this episode that they're talking about in this original post, so they break the milestone with the 276th episode. If you go over here, you look, the last one that was out was the 272nd episode, 73rd, 74th, and it doesn't have the last, the next two listed, but notice the 74th ends on season 12, episode 19. So that means the 275 would be season 12, episode 20. And the 276th episode that they're talking about that's so important would be season 12, episode 21. 12 and 21. These numbers that are important to the numbers 73 and 37 and why Sheldon likes this number, right? So, absolutely all on purpose here. Also, while reading this article here, where it talks about Penny, if you go down to the bottom, it talks about how the season finale is going to be on May 16th. And what's interesting, it's interesting for a few things. Just the other day, I had some synchronicity with this number. And let me pull that up really quick. I'll show you really quick here. John C. Reilly. I don't remember what post it was, but it was a few days ago at work, and when I first got to work, this guy who looks like John C. Reilly, who I've known for a long time, he was checking out, and I work at a gas station, and it was just before I switched registers, I went to work, and this other lady was leaving or whatever, and he got something, and whatever, I gave him crap, and no big deal, but I was looking at my phone just before we switched out, and the first thing that was on Facebook was this thing of Boats and Hoes from the movie Step Brothers, right, with Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. And I'm like, what are the odds of that? I'm just talking to this guy who looks like John C. Reilly, and, a lot of times we give him shit about this movie, how he looks like John C. Reilly, and, we say something about your nutsack on the drums, or I don't know, just whatever, and I looked his name up in Gematria, and it just so happens to equal 516. And if you write out John C. Reilly, it equals 516. So I was like, how interesting, this show is going to be ending on 516. And I was looking at my old posts about the Big Bang Theory, and I put out 2 videos from way back when talking about how I noticed when I was watching the show, Sheldon was explaining the significance of the number 73. And another video that I had put out was it was about season 5, episode 16. And when I re-noticed this connection with the number 73, it was right around the time that Sheldon, who is Jim Parsons, got gay married. And then he was going to get married to Amy on the Big Bang Theory. And the mainstream media put that article out on the date of May 16th, 5/16. So I have this old video talking about season 5, episode 16. And then when I discovered my old video about the number 73, and I knew a lot more about how the study works, there was a story on the date of 5/16. And the reason that it's so significant is if you write out 516, it equals 212, right? 21 and 12 yet again. What are the odds of that? 516, 212, these numbers connected to 7337. And season 5, episode 16 of the Big Bang Theory, there's even a little clue in that show. If you pay enough attention, Sheldon's looking through a microphone counting, and he's really bored when he's helping Amy work. And when Amy comes back in and she asks him, how he's doing, he starts counting again, and the last number that he stops on is 367, and then they start talking and they don't list any more numbers. Well, if you notice, 367 just so happens to be the 73rd prime number. So why would he stop on that number? So we'll see if it's this one here. Hold on. I don't want to play the clip, but I'll leave this video in the description. Maybe it isn't this one. It's the other one. Also, what else is interesting about this last episode then being on May 16th is if you go from March 28th to May 16th, it's 1 month and 18 days. And if you noticed earlier, when you went from Penny's birthday to March 28th, it's 118 days. 3 months, 28 days, but also 118 days. And remember how I said the TV show is set in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles equals 328. But if you write out Los Angeles, California, it equals 118. So possibly there's something important to Los Angeles, California, and in all of this, right? 118. There is some interesting parallels, because the word death also equals 118 in Jewish gematria. Let me pull this up really quick. Jewish, and it's the end of the show, so could be something to do with that. But we've also been talking a lot about the date of August 11th coming up and how it's connected to San Francisco and a bunch of other things. And this is a number I've talked about for years, actually. I used to talk about how 11 times 8 was 88, this big number with time travel and whatnot. So who knows? Just trying to piece the puzzle together here. But 118 days after Kaylee Kuko's birthday, and 1 month, 18 days before the end of it, and Los Angeles, California equals 118. And it's synced up pretty well. So also, some interesting things here. So, while I was writing up this blog post, my son started crying, and I was like, what in the world, like, he doesn't wake up that often during the night, but lately he's been waking up a little bit, and I just looked over at my phone to see what time it was, and it just so happened to be 12:21, right when he woke up. So I was like, 12:21. I'm writing about all this stuff about 12 and 21, and my son starts crying. I look at my phone, it's 12:21. And I looked up Kaylee, whatever her name is, the movies that she's in, and I noticed one of the first movies she's in is this movie called Alley Cat Strike. And I just literally talked about this to my girlfriend last week because we were at Walmart and we bought this bowling set. It comes with like a plastic couple bowling balls, and you set up these bowling pins. And I talked to her about if she'd ever seen this movie called, I didn't know what it was called, but I said it's some Disney movie where he's on the bowling team or whatever, and it's something about the Washington Apple Trophy. And now I found this movie, I know what it's called now, and I wanted to rewatch the movie, but I couldn't remember what it was called, and then I forgot about it and didn't even really research to look it up. But what's interesting is it came out on March 18th, and if you look at the blog post that I made before I noticed all this stuff with the Big Bang Theory, or even clicked on the story even, I talked about this story right here about Nike triumphs in Michael Jordan Jumpman lawsuit. And I talked all about the number 318. And this is literally just before I discovered this article about the Big Bang Theory. But I'm not going to re-explain all this stuff in this. Maybe I'll make a separate video in regards to it. But, it has a lot to do with this theme I was following last summer, and drowning, and how that happens during the dog days of, it was during the dog days of summer, and the dog days of summer are basically during the same time that the Nile River floods every year. And think about that in regards to drowning. And I was last year around the same time I was talking about this drowning theme, and I was connected to the Mighty Ducks. And then we got the duck boat drowning. And then we got the arrest of Goldberg, the goalie, who was really important to what I was talking about. And his, it was all about the Aurora Bridge duck boat crash. And, this year we got the Aurora shooting. And that same day we got that Aurora shooting, we got the Jussie Smollett story, or another piece to that story in the mainstream media. And he was in the movie The Mighty Ducks even, so it's absolutely significant to what I'm talking about. But just notice I talked a lot about this number 318. So on the TV show Touch with Kiefer Sutherland, they talk about how everything is related in this world, and this kid can see the pattern, and he can make things touch at certain times, to make the world better. Things that I'm talking about, what I'm talking about from the beginning of this video, that everyone can understand this knowledge, and we can make the world a better place if we can all work together and, create a balance in this world. But that's the supposed God number. There's also Truth Heresy videos where he talks a lot about this from years ago, and there's a part where he talks about the number 318, and it's the Gnostic value for Christ. And the New Testament supposedly mentions the return of Jesus 318 times. But I don't know how the Gnostic value for Jesus or Christ works. I can't figure out how exactly they did the gematria. Maybe it was in Hebrew language or something else. I don't know. But according to that video, and also if you go to writingthebeast.com, they talk about it, how the Gnostic value for Christ is 318, and I don't know how they come up with that. But Nike's all about Saturn, right? The swoosh represents Saturn's rings, and in gematria, Nike and Saturn equal the same thing. That's why we got the story of Colin Kaepernick on 9-3, because his name equals 93, and Saturn also equals 93, and Saturn is El. He's the Phoenician bull god. And think about that with Michael Jordan, right? Who is the bull's god, really, right? Michael Jordan, the god of the Chicago Bulls. And then El, who is also Saturn, is the bull god. And if you read out bull god, it equals 318. And Jordan retired in 93 after his father died, right? And then when he came out of retirement, he came back in a game on 318. And if you write out Kabbalah, it equals 318, which is Jewish mysticism, the practice of coding numbers into words or phrases, and, following these signs and synchronicities and patterns. So it's just really, really interesting. So the reason I brought all that up was just because this movie came out on 318. And I had just talked about how the number 318 is important, and then I discovered she's in this movie that I wanted to rewatch last week, and, what are the odds? I also, earlier tonight, so when I first got on the computer tonight, I went to Facebook, and the first post I saw was from this guy right here, Edgardo Rodriguez, and it was just on my homepage. It came up, and it had a thing about, he's like the Matrix. I usually don't eat Lay's. The other day I got a bag without knowing I would end up taking a load to the Frito-Lay in Topeka, Kansas, right? And he's showing this Lay truck and this bag of Lay's that he never supposedly eats, right? And I never put it together until later on in the night, but because when I started noticing all these pie connections, later on in the night, he started posting all the stuff about how Pi was following him. I was at Pi at 3:14. He showed the available drive time at 3:14, and then the company he works for equals 3:14. And what's funny is my girlfriend made tuna noodles for supper, and I wanted to put potato chips on it for whatever reason. I just think they're better with potato chips on. I haven't had Lay's potato chips, and I can't tell you how long because I don't really like plain potato chips. The only time I really ever eat them even is with tuna and noodles. I mean, even when I buy like French onion dip, I eat Doritos with it. I never eat the plain chips. So this guy's talking about how he never eats them, and he has a strange synchronicity. And I see this post, and then I realize later on in the night that earlier before I saw this post, I put Lay's potato chips on top of my tuna and noodles, and I never eat Lay's potato chips. So I was like, huh, that's some crazy stuff. And then now I'm noticing all this pie stuff, and he was talking about all this pie stuff. And I looked at all this before I even looked at the Big Bang Theory stuff. And at the end of one of the articles that I had looked at, they talked about this guy who made some type of record with the number pi. And I was like, huh, this guy's talking about pi following. Now all of a sudden pi is following me. And then I see this with the Big Bang, and I knew Stephen Hawking was important, and he died on Pi Day. So it's just like, what in the world, This is how this works. You just follow these patterns. So, plus the 318 number, a big deal, Leonard Nimoy even died on 227, and that's Sheldon on the Big Bang Theory's idol, right? He loves Leonard Nimoy, who is Spock on Star Trek. If you take 22 divided by 7, it equals 3.14, right? So like pi. And in gematria, if you write it out as words, 22 divided by 7, it equals 314. But if you do it the opposite way, and you take 7 divided by 22, it equals 0.318, right? So this number that I was documenting about before even seeing the story was connected to the reflection of this other number that is connected to pi, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. But once again, it's the reflection, the 12 and the 21, the 37, the 73, God and Satan. That's why Sirius is really important, and that's what I talked about in regards to the story with Michael Jordan, because the theme song, the bum 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 bum, right? The intro song of the Bulls, that song is called Sirius. And then Michael Jordan's dad died in during the dog days of summer, and Sirius is the dog star. Dog is the word God and reverse, right? If you look at a dollar bill and you see the pyramid with the all-seeing eye, and it has that light around it, that light is not the sun. That light represents Sirius, which in Freemasonry, that's the true light. The sun is the false light. Sirius is the true light. So, that's why on the number 23, when he goes to the doctor's room, the room number is number 318, and the doctor's name is Dr. Leary Sirius. And that's why he's the dog catcher in the beginning of the movie, because it's all about Sirius. Think about Batman and Robin, where Jim Carrey teaches you gematria. Batman figures out who the Riddler is, because the Riddler uses gematria. He codes numbers into words, right? And then in the movie The Number 23, Jim Carrey does that same thing, but he does it in a really crazy way where it doesn't make as much sense. He does it in a hard way that makes it look crazy. But if you go back and really watch that movie, I feel like that movie, when a lot of people first watch it and they're not awake to what is going on, they just assume that numbers are crazy and this guy's just a crazy person and he's making these numbers happen. But go back and really watch that movie. He doesn't make any of that stuff happen to him. It just happens to him. Like, he meets his girlfriend. He walks out of the hospital and meets his girlfriend on his 23rd birthday or her 23rd birthday and stuff like that. Like, there's just so many things that there's no way that it could happen. He adds up every 23rd letter and the writing or whatever. And I can't even remember it all, but there's just no way. The odds of that stuff happening are ridiculous, right? And he ends up going to that last room, 23. It's all by chance. It's, or all by script, because of the mathematics of the world that we're living in. It's not that he's crazy. That number really is following him, and you just need to go back and rewatch that movie. That's what I'm talking about. But the last thing I'm going to mention here is Chuck Norris. So 73 is the Chuck Norris of numbers. And if you've been following what I have been documenting over and over, it's been really important to the number 310. And I re-looked up Chuck Norris, and I noticed his birthday is March 10th, 310. What are the odds of that, right? And his name, Carlos Ray Norris, equals 79, and he just turned 79 years old. So he's a guy to watch out for. Maybe he could possibly die this year. The word murder equals 79. It's a really important number to, all of this. The word murder, 79. So he turned 79. His name equals 79. Possibly he won't die, but there's something important to it, especially with his birthday being 310. And a long time ago, when I documented about him, I talked about how Corey Haim even died on his 70th birthday. And if you've been watching my recent videos, I even talked about Corey Feldman supporting Michael Jackson on the same day that Luke Perry died, and how it was connected to the number 310 and this vampire theme with the Lost Boys, right? And Michael Jackson had Neverland Ranch. Think about the movie The Lost Boys. Luke Perry was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that equals 310. And the TV show first came out on the date of 310. And Corey Haim died on 310. We got that plane crash on the date of 310 in Ethiopia. And Selassie equals 310. He was the last emperor that ruled there, and he's supposedly the second coming of Jesus Christ, and that's why he got overthrew in the year 74, because Jesus equals 74, and cross equals 74, and Jesus Christ equals 74, and Yeshua equals 74, and Muhammad, Lucifer, Gospel, Messiah, occult, they all equal 74. Masonic equals 74. So, just interesting. I would even talk about Corey Haim in this old post about Chuck Norris. I talk about the number 73. It's interesting, too, in this post about Roy Moore riding a horse to the polls. And let's look this up really quick. When Penny got married, right after she got married, she got injured. I can't remember what it was. Her boyfriend or something loves horses here. She's married to a pro horse rider, right? So, and this was right after the Triple Crown and whatnot. So, something important to that. I don't know what it is for sure, but in real life she's married to a pro horse rider, and then she got injured. So I don't know. I was just noticing that as I was looking at this post again. He's riding a horse into there. I wonder what horse is in gematria. Funny, horse equals 91 and Francis Bacon here. And what did I write in this post? I saw a 91 in there. When she marries Leonard, it's season 9, episode 1. Huh. And then she marries a horse rider in real life. The word horse equals 91. Huh. Also, what's funny here is I'm just trying to do a little bit of research as I'm making this video. And I noticed that Roy Moore, well, equestrian equals 141. And Roy Moore equals 52. And I know there's a lot of numbers up here now, but you know, these are just in the 4 base ones here. Roy Moore, 52. Equestrian equaled 141, just like San Francisco, California. And the reason that it was so important here was because we've been talking a lot about the date of August 11th. And in this post, this old post, I talked about the Triple Crown and whatnot, right? Where did I talk about it here? Or no, it was the post about Kaylee, whatever. I talked about the Triple Crown and how it was connected to the Triple Crown. So Roy Moore equals 52. And a long time ago in 2015, this was a huge number that I talked about with the San Francisco and the Golden Gate Bridge. And, you know, somebody pointed out to me the other day that The Rock, who's in the movie San Andreas, and he's also was in WrestleMania at 31, and that was in the San Francisco Bay Area, and The Rock is from the San Francisco Bay Area. And he brings up Ronda Rousey on stage that hit Stephanie McMahon. And then they do the Terminator thing where they have the destruction on the Golden Gate Bridge or whatever. But anyway, The Rock born on 5/2, which is the 122nd day of the year. If you write out San Francisco, it equals 122. It's on the 122nd meridian. Also, it's named after St. Francis of Assisi, who is important to the number 310. His name equals 310. He died on 310 and so on. But the date of 5/2 in 2015 was really important too, because it was important to Pope Francis's visit to the United States. And he's also named after St. Francis of Assisi, just like San Francisco. And his name equals 122 like San Francisco. The word Pope equals 52. But that date of 5/2 that year was really important. It was also 552 is the 239th prime number. And when Pope Francis came to the United States, it was during the 239th year of the United States. And he went to the White House on 23/9. And, you know, in gematria, the word president equals 52. And if you write out White House, it also equals 52. And if you write out government, that equals 52. So I'm just pointing out this number 52 is really important. In 2015, on 5/2, we had the Mayweather fight where he fought Manny Pacquiao and whatnot. And Mayweather, his birthday is 2/24, the day that leaves 310 days in the year. And we also had, there was all kinds of stuff with it. Princess Charlotte was born that day, and Michael Jordan, who was important, and I just talked about Michael Jordan here. He was 52 years old, and, you know, he owns the Charlotte Hornets, and this year we had the NBA All-Star Weekend Charlotte at the Spectrum Center, and Hulk Hogan, who's born on August 11th, he got his revenge against Earthquake at the Spectrum in Philadelphia that has the black cube on the top of the Comcast Center that looks like the building that falls over on the Earthquake golf course that Happy Gilmore learns how to putt on. And the black cube represents the New Jerusalem, right? And that's what August 11th is a lot about because of Tisha B'Av and whatnot. But also, I'm sorry to keep going here, but also on the date of 5/2 that year, we had the 141st Triple Crown, and it was won by American Pharaoh. It was all about the number 52. I can't remember all the stuff, but tons of stuff with the number 52. The 141st, and think about San Francisco, the 141st prime is 8/11, right? And the American Pharaoh was also sponsored by the company Call 811, the number you're supposed to call before you dig. And anyway, we had the new Triple Crown winner in 2018, which was Justify. And what's Justify equal? Actually, I didn't look this up, but Justify, I thought I had a connection. I know I have a video on it somewhere. I thought there was some connection to 52 with Justify, but anyway, look at Justify. I just looked up Justify the horse, and it was foaled on the date of March 28th, just like today. Just like how the story is 3 months and 28 days after Kaylee Kuko's birthday, and Stephen Hawking's full name equals 328. This horse was foaled on 328, so it was in the year 2015 as well, the year that, all of this was going on. 328. The Pope also used to wear the Triple Crown, too, so I need to think more on it. It's craziness. But, and it's funnier, too, because I've been following this theme with the word more as well at some point in time. It's connected to the pink stuff, and so, I even put this post out on the 314th day of the year. Craziness. That's my birthday. 314th day of the year. Unbelievable. So, well, we'll just keep following the patterns. I just wanted to make this video because the story of, whatever, I explained it all. What are the odds? They're surpassing Cheers just after I talk about Cheers, and then it's all connected to this number 73, and so on. So, more to look into. We'll follow the pattern, it's what I always do. Eventually we'll be able to figure it out and be able to teach people how this knowledge truly works and learn, hopefully figure this world out and get a better understanding of what the point of this world is, so have a good one. Peace.